welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me, PE.
You know what, man? It's exciting. I mean, you're returning to the franchise. We
Mm,
don't know, right? Like we think about, like, we hope that we're gonna get like more movies, like more Bad Boys
yeah,
movies, but we never know. And now we got the fourth. I mean, it's so. Well, how was that? Like, kind of diving back into that franchise specifically.
it was incredible. It was so much fun. I mean, a lot of the same crew was involved, a lot of the same cast returned. So honestly, it felt like a homecoming
Yeah,
doing the fourth movie, man. It was just like, picking back up right where we left off. It was trippy. It
absolutely.
was trippy.
Was it like, how many years was it between the two films?
Shooting, it was about 4 years actually, but it's weird because we shot in a lot of the same locations, we shot in the same studio, so it was like a time capsule, like stepping into a time capsule because coming right back to the same locations, it's like a minute hadn't passed.
A lot of the reviews are talking about the fun component, the action, the immersive component of it. Like, you really feel like
Yeah,
you're there with all the characters. When you read
yeah,
the script for this one before you go to
yeah.
camera, like, do you kind of like, do you think about a lot of those things? Does it feel like, wow, this is going to be an immersive thing? Because it's hard to know, like, until you go
Yeah.
to camera. But like, do you think about those things when you're reading the script?
I mean, when I read the script, a lot of the action jumped right off the page, and because I was familiar, this was my third film with Adil Bilall now, my second film with Robert, our DP, and second with Will and Martin also. So I knew what to expect from those guys. They just Adil Bilal's catchphrase is
Mhm.
next level shit. That's the catchphrase, and that's what they aim for 24/7. So I knew that they were just going to take this one to an entirely different level.
Absolutely. Number one movie in the US, which is
Hmm.
amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
As an actor, you don't really think about those things, but I feel like it's kind of hard not to because there's so much, right? There's so much Bad Boys right now. I guess it's just
Yeah,
kind of taking it day by day, right? Like, you wrap this film, at some point it's going to
yeah,
come out, at some point you're going to do press for it. Is that
yeah.
just kind of how it is? It's just a day by day thing for you?
You do that. You strive to live in the moment. You strive to live in the now. Just as a performer, as an actor, and also as a human being, you try to stay very much in the moment because that's where all your happiness and joy comes from. You spend your future, you're worrying about it, and the past is already gone. So I try to live in the moment, certainly.
So much happens before you go to camera. You know what I mean? There's so much, like, there's table reads, talking to the
Hmm.
directors and everything. Um, you know, and I feel like in a lot of ways, Jacob, it could be seen as two separate journeys from a storytelling perspective, before filming something and after
Hmm.
filming something. Does it feel like two journeys for you, or does it feel like one big journey with multiple steps? I'm curious about that.
It's certain there's certainly a gap between the two, and you try to bridge the gap. I mean, when I'm working, I try not to think about how it will be perceived. It's funny, but the last thing I try to think about is the audience, which
That's a
is which is
question I
we
asked too. If you're ever conscious of the audience, that's hilarious that you
yeah,
say that.
it's a kind of there's a big dichotomy there because this movie is for the fans, it's for the people of which I am one of a
Yeah.
fan of the franchise. But if you start thinking about how I'll be perceived and reviews and all these things that come with the second half of the film, which is, giving it to the world, then I feel you kind of you paint yourself into a corner a little bit and you don't allow yourself to express and explore the now. So yeah, going back to what we were talking about, it's all about being in the moment.
Yeah, but also, going to the future a little bit, to think about the fact that people get to marathon all the Bad Boys movies is like the
Mhm.
coolest thing in the world if you think about it.
It's awesome. I mean, we've got four fantastic movies now as part of this franchise, which people just adore and love. And who knows from here? Who knows? Who
Dude,
knows
and
if
I, and
we'll
I, and I have
continue
to
and do more?
I have to say, you got to work with Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, and a lot of
Mhm.
incredible people on this. But Will Smith and Martin Lawrence got to work with Jacob Scipio on this film, man. I have to say that.
Oh man, those guys are just like absolute geniuses. They're so welcoming. They create this vibe on set, which is like a playground almost. Like you have so much freedom, and everyone they surround themselves with the entire team that they have around all of them. it's like one big family, man. It's
Yeah,
just
but I
they're
mean that,
both
dude.
such
You're
great
so good
people.
in this, man. You're so talented. Like you're so good
Thank
in
you.
this movie, man. Like you see it all. I know you try not to again living in the moment, but
Mm.
some scene stealing moments, man. I'm just saying. Like,
Thank you, PD Beats. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I had some fantastic. Armando had some fantastic scenes in this one. He really gets to flex his muscles in more ways than one, which I
yes.
revel in.
Now, okay, that's interesting. We'll go back from the beginning because you never know when there's conversations and everything. So, what is that first conversation like that your character, there's a chance that he can come back for the fourth, right? Like, what is that like? And do
Yeah,
you know that he might have a bigger role? Like, I'm just curious about that first kind of like conversation with maybe like your character
yeah.
returning.
Well, I had an inkling that he may return, or they're feeling to bring him back in the fourth installment while we were shooting reshoots for the third film. So that post-credit scene that you see where
Mhm.
uh, Mike visits Armando
Yes.
in the prison, that was actually shot a couple months after principal photography.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess they decided that there was more to explore with this Armando character. So around that time, I thought, okay, there could be more to tell in Armando's story here.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, so yeah, it's cool, right? Because it's like there's still this
Mm.
unknown aspect of it where it's like, okay, he's probably gonna show up, but
Hmm.
like we get a lot of Armando in this movie.
Yeah, we do get a lot of Armando, which is great, man. I mean, I love coming to work with these guys. It doesn't feel like work. I love this world, this universe, and I love this character, man. Like I feel like Armando's he's the ultimate badass, but he's just got a conscience too. He's got this human aspect to him. So I look at him kind of as like a Swiss Army man. You
Mhm.
know, he can fly helicopters, boats, planes, trains, automobiles. He's proficient in all weapons. He can use his hands if he needs to get down and dirty, or even some gym equipment, as we see in this fourth movie.
Yep.
So I feel like you can put him anywhere in the world, and shit's gonna go down.
Okay, perfect segue to my next question. It's almost like you knew what I was gonna ask. We don't want to go into
We're in
big
sync, Petey. We're in sync.
Absolutely dialed in. I find it interesting because people have seen the film. It's out in theaters, but a lot more people are going to be watching it. So we don't want to go into super big spoilers or anything.
Hmm.
But I'm just curious. It's out there. You know what I mean? If your answers are big spoilers, like it doesn't matter. But we can talk about scenes. What was your favorite scene to film, and what was the hardest scene?
Uh, my favorite scene to film was probably the prison
Yep.
fight sequence,
Yep.
just because I'd been training for it for so long, physically and mentally, that when it came to the morning of shooting, which was actually the first day of shooting on the schedule, that's how we began production.
Wow.
So it was, yeah,
Talk
it
about
was kind
having
of.
to make. Talk about like getting thrown in, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was, but I came in about 3 weeks early to train with incredible stunt team to really get this choreography down. So I was just super prepared. I couldn't wait to kick it off. I was so excited to do it. So that was probably my favorite. The hardest scene to shoot was probably in the Chinook, in the Chinook helicopter sequence. And it's not the physical aspect of it. It was more it's the Will and Martin aspect of it, because they're talking about how Will and Martin were connected in a previous life.
Yes.
And Will's character used to be Martin's character's donkey. Now they kind of came up with this on the day, so it was hard to shoot because I couldn't keep a straight face. I was cracking up and ruining every take because these guys were just riffing off of each other and being so hilarious. It was almost impossible to get through because it was so funny.
That's awesome. Uh, so like when have you I always ask this question before, like have you seen it? Like have you watched the film?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I've
no,
seen
because
the movie.
I do some interviews sometimes and I'll ask someone about like certain scenes or anything, and you'll get the odd time where it's like someone's like, I haven't seen it yet, or I don't watch it.
Yeah,
So I always
yeah.
ask, so do you look back at that scene and you're like, I almost
I
I almost cracked up right before that take or something like that? Like, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of can't separate your emotions from when you were shooting it to the final thing. So, but in terms of watching my own stuff, man, I kind of that I can't remember who said this, but it was like it's like watching old home movies,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
It's like that feeling. So The good, happy home movies like Bad Boys 4, I will watch time and time again. And the
Oh,
sad ones, you know, you kind of don't watch.
well, it's so funny because it's like growing up, like I'm a creative as well right now. I just wrapped some short films that I wrote and produced as well. And like,
Congratulations, man.
thanks, man. It's cool. But it's just like I watched so many movies, and you watch so many movies to figure out what kind of movies you want to write and you want to make. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's just kind of like that's watching movies is like school if you want to get into making movies, if you think about it.
totally. Totally. It's the best education that you can get if you want to be a filmmaker is just to surround yourself with the classics and the modern ones right side by side each other. It's the best.
And like that was my next question. I mean, you work on this movie, the scale's so massive,
Mhm.
the iconic franchise and everything. You're acting in this film, but like, does it kind of like make you interested in like going behind the camera and like writing and directing after working on a film like this, seeing all the moving parts, the
Yeah.
amazing cast, amazing crew? Like, I'm just curious if you think about that.
Definitely, you get the bug for sure of wanting to be involved in all facets of filmmaking, simply because of the people involved behind the camera,
Yeah.
and you see how incredible they are and how talented they are. You know, I just love making movies. I
Mhm.
do honestly love making movies, every sort of aspect of it. So for sure, I've thought about that and think about pursuing that.
But this is the popcorn movie theater movie,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah,
this is what it's all
totally.
about in regards to that.
Totally. I mean, it's just absolute entertainment from wall to wall. I mean, we rip and run in this film like nothing else. And out of all four of them, I'm a big fan of one and two. You know, I grew up on two, and obviously I was involved in three, but this one I think is my favorite.
How separate are your past journeys? Because it's interesting because you play different characters, you've been in different worlds, but it's like, do you take kind of elements? I mean, you got to work in the Expendables world, kind of
Hmm.
similar with the action and everything. Like similar,
Hmm.
but actually not similar if you think about it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like there's so much that kind of happens in
Yeah.
both. But like, do you ever bring things preparation wise, mindset wise from past work?
I mean, in terms of the character, no, I try to keep them separate, you know, because
Yeah.
every character is its own 360 version of itself. But there are residual skills which you have which transfer from film to film. Like if you're doing action movies, then weapons training is a big deal. You always keep in mind, you know, safety first and foremost, you know, make sure you don't flag anyone, make sure, you know, you're not waving the gun around, you know, keep that kind of stuff tight. So there are certain physical aspects which certainly you hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I just think because at the end of the day, like it is all storytelling at the end of the
Hmm.
day, right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's that mindset of, we are diving into this world, right? Whether it's, Bad Boys for Life, Expendables, but there
Hmm.
is, yeah, like with the characters and everything. Because I find it cool. Like you've played a lot of the characters you played in the past are pretty different, which is really cool. I feel like that's the actor's dream, right? To flex those kind of
Yeah,
acting muscles a little bit.
totally. Totally. You wanna have as much diversity in your roles as possible because for selfish reasons, it's fun to walk in another person's shoes. You
Mhm.
know, that's the dream for
Yeah.
sure. But I feel like you do inevitably in all your roles bring shades of yourself and your personality into these characters.
Jacob, so great
Mhm.
chatting with you, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Lovely chatting with you, mate. Lovely.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.